Welcome, everyone. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Knock over my chair. So you'll notice things are a little bit different today. We are guitarless. We're going guitarless. This is like Shabbat unplugged, right? So I'm going to rely actually on all of you to help us create this sonic space that is going to allow us to bring in Shabbat together. So whether you're joining us in person, whether you're joining us via live stream, whether you are here. Is anybody here for the first time? Welcome. So whether you're here for the first time, whether you have been here so many times, I see you. Whether you know the words or don't know the words, the melodies are familiar or the melodies are unfamiliar, each and every one of you is an important part of helping us create this space together. And what is this space that we're creating together? So many years ago, I had the honor of having a congregant at one of my previous congregations named Edie Windsor. Some of you might be familiar with Edie Windsor. She was the plaintiff in the case that overturned the Defense of Marriage Amendment and helped secure marriage equality in this country. And she was with her wife for decades, and they went through discrimination and having to hide the relationship and disease and illness and all of these obstacles that they had to overcome. And I remember sitting with her once, this really, like, she was tiny, little old Jewish lady. And I said, how was it? How was it that you maintained such a deep, loving relationship for so many decades, overcoming so many obstacles? And she said, Stephen, I have two pieces of advice for you. The first one, I want you to picture little old lady updo, little kind of like suit, little tiny, the tiniest person. She leans in, she goes, first piece of advice, keep it hot. However, I want to share the second piece of advice. I mean, it's important, right? But the second piece of advice she gave me was don't delay joy. Don't delay joy. This week has had some tough stuff happening, maybe in your own lives, but also just in the world generally. There's a darkness that we have to grapple with in the world around us, and it's hard. We also had some good stuff happen this week. Ketanji Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court, right? And so we celebrate. We should celebrate that moment, and we should celebrate that moment without feeling guilty about the fact that we are cultivating a space for joy even when there is darkness. Because we should not delay joy. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Tomorrow is not guaranteed, but we do know that we have this moment. And it's not that we are ignoring the brokenness that is outside of these walls. It's not that we are pretending that our own broken hearts don't exist. But we're saying, okay, that's going to still be there tomorrow, later, after Shabbat. So I'm just going to put it in a box for now and just take that box, put it to the side. I'm going to create another space, just create a little bit of room to recognize the blessings that have happened this week. Whether they're big blessings, like the changing face of the Supreme Court, or they're small blessings, like the blessing of being here in this space with all of you, creating this community together. And so I invite you, as we begin to lean into this space of Shabbat, that whether it's just pushing aside enough space in you to just find that small blessing, or maybe you are coming into this room already bursting with joy, that we begin to just widen that just a little bit, to create that container together so that alongside everything else that we have to deal with, we also have that container for joy, for gratitude, for blessing as well. We're going to continue on page 2. צור אישנו נקדמה אחריו בתודה בזמירות נריע לו on page 3. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו בכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני able, page 7, Psalm 29. Mizmor leDavid, Havul Adonai b'nei Elim, Havul Adonai b'kavod va'oz. Yai, dai, dai, Havul Adonai keval shemo, yishtachavu l'Adonai b'hadra kodesh, kol Adonai hamayim, el hakavod hirim, Adonai amayim rabim, kol Adonai b'koach. Ay, 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 kol Adonai behadar, kol Adonai shover arazim, shaber Adonai et darze halvanon, vayakidem kemo egel Lebanon, vesirion kemo venreimim. Ay, 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 kol Adonai hozel havogesh, kol Adonai yachil midbar, yachil Adonai bakadesh, kol Adonai yachol elayalot, vayechesov yeharot, uhechalo, kulo omer kavod. Ay, 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 Adonai lamu yashai, yishev Adonai melech leolam, Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom. Ay, 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 You may be seated. We're at the bottom of page 7, and so we're starting to lift the energy of the room a little bit, but some of us might still be kind of easing into it. Shabbat is a space for joy, but there's so many different inflections of joy. There's the bouncy, fun, happy joy, but there's also the joy that comes with it's like a joy of yearning, right? Kind of a longing, a reaching for something that maybe we haven't quite grabbed onto yet. And Ana B'choach, this prayer that we're about to say, right, is kind of about reaching for that power, saying, answer us, answer me, Shabbat, God, each other, whatever that thing is that you're here to be answered by. Answer me with strength, with joy, with something that I'm lacking at this moment. I'm beginning to kind of create that space within you to reach for it. Maybe just even to figure it out. What is it that I actually need right now? Do I need rest? Do I need strength? Do I need maybe a bit of that energy? Do I need actually maybe the opposite, to relax a little bit, lean into my chair a little bit more, sink a bit more into my seat? Or at the bottom, page 7. Ana bechoach gedulat yemincha tatir terua kabel rinatamcha sakbeinu tareinu nora.
Earlier this week, I was at a seminar for this ongoing fellowship that I'm a part of, an educators fellowship, and we are talking about values education largely. And so we have a value at each seminar that we kind of dive into. And the value that we dove into on Monday was gratitude. And so the organizer invited us to spend 10 minutes, like a full 10 minutes, writing a letter of gratitude to someone in our life who we haven't expressed gratitude for at some point. 10 whole minutes to do this. So it's not like a 3-sentence thing, but it's like a whole get deep kind of experience. And she showed us this video about people, and that it was actually the scientific study that had been done that people who expressed gratitude were happier. And the biggest change in happiness was for people who started off really not happy, and then they expressed gratitude, and their happiness score went up by sometimes as much as 46%. So I wrote a letter to one of my best friends. Dear Catherine, I'm so glad you're my friend. I love having you as a friend. You're a great friend. And then I started to sit and think about it, and I got deeper. And I got into all of the things that make her such a great friend. She's a good foil to me. We have really different personalities. We have different approaches to life. She's a good person for me to be in relationship with because the way that she sees the world is different than mine, but her values are the same as mine. We hold similar values. And so I wrote this whole long letter. And the organizer said, I know that was a very intimate experience. You don't ever have to share your gratitude with the person you wrote to. I just wanted you to have the experience of writing it. And the experience of writing it was itself very intimate. And then, as it happened that night, Catherine called me. And I was talking to her, and spontaneously I was like, I actually want to read you something. And I read her the letter that I wrote, and it was this really intimate moment where she was like, I didn't know that that's why you love being my friend. And it felt like sort of a recommitment ceremony for us to have this little moment where, like, we've been best friends for 5, 6 years, 7 years, 2014, 8 years, a number of years. And we had this sort of spontaneous moment of reconnection and recommitment in our friendship to each other. That's what Lechadodi invites us to do every single week with our relationship to community, to God, to Shabbat, to rest, to ourselves. It invites us to recommit. It invites us to say, here are all of the things that I'm so grateful for about this relationship that I hold with this community, with these people, with this tradition. That naturally, that stuff kind of wanes. We start to take it for granted. And then Lechadodi comes and it says, Maher ahuv kiva moed. Hurry up, loved one, because the festival is coming. Hurry up. Find something to be grateful for. Find some reason to recommit to this relationship. And then what happens after that? We bow to the door. We bow to the coming of the Shabbat Queen because we are ready to recommit to that relationship. We are ready to say once again, I want to be in sacred covenantal relationship with you because I'm grateful for you. So I want to invite you to take just a moment to pick something about Jewish life that you are grateful for. Something about Jewish life you're grateful for. The music, the people, the food, the holiday cycle, whatever it is. And say to yourself in your head or quietly under your breath or to someone sitting next to you, I'm so grateful for. I'm so grateful for you coming back every week, recommitting to doing this thing together. And that makes me ready to recommit to stand and bow to the Shabbat Queen and say, I'm in this for another week. And I'll see you again next week to do the same thing again. We continue with Lecha Dodi on page 8.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmiyanu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shem u'tiferet v'litilat. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu b'nelcha ki hi mekor ha'beracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshava tila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Top of page 9.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lo tibloshi velo tikami ma tishtochachi u'ma tehemi bach yechesu ani ye'ami v'beni v'ta'ir al tila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hayu limshisan shosai v'rachaku kol mevalayich yasis alayich Elohayich kitsos hatan al-akala. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Yaminu small,
Tifrosi
Shabbat, B'nai Shabbat,
Invite to rise. We face the door. Somebody's going to open the door. Somebody is going to open the door.
Yay.
We're going to invite in, as Rabbi Dina reminded us, whatever that is we are grateful for in this moment, whatever it is that we feel like we need a bit more right now. We welcome it in. We bow towards it. We accept it. We welcome it. Bottom of page 9.
Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha, u'b'tov olam, toch emunei, am segula.
We recognize that even with the joy that we're creating on Shabbat, that there are people who are carrying broken hearts with them. And we think also, too, of all the places in the world, Israel, the Ukraine, where there are many families grieving right now. We say to them at the bottom of page 9 these words that we say to mourners everywhere, but particularly at this point in Shabbat, we welcome them, whether actually physically into the room, or just the thought of them, we hold them in this moment. If you want to join me at the bottom page 9, Hamakom yenechem etchem betoch sha'ar avlei Tzion Yerushalayim. May the one who is the source of all consolation, the source of compassion, comfort each and every one of you, along with the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome. It's so nice to see all of you here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, I'm going to embarrass the people who are here for the first time. This is what we like to do here at Mishkan.
Not embarrassed, welcome.
Okay, not embarrassed, welcome. Lovingly embarrass. If you're here for the first time and would like to stand up and share who you are and where you're coming to us from, this is an opportunity so we know who you are, so that we can afterwards, we enjoy like schmoozing after services. We'll come up to you, we'll shower you with love and affection and kindness and all those things. If you're joining us by live stream for the first time too, you can type in the chat where you're coming from and who you are. We have volunteers. Amazing, amazing. Who are you? Where are you from?
I'm Paul. I'm Sasha. And we're coming from LA.
Amazing. Amazing. Welcome, Tal and Sasha from LA, from our sister congregation at Ikar. Who else? Who else is here for the first time? Yes. Nice. Where in Chicago? It's a big city. Logan Square. Okay, awesome. Welcome. All the way from Logan Square, the other side of the river, the blue line. Hi. Hello. Who are you? Nice to see you. We went to rabbinical school together, so I know. Welcome, thank you. We're gonna go back this way. Okay, well, welcome, Waterbridge, Connecticut, via now a 15-minute walk away. We're glad you're here. Yes? Amazing, welcome. Yellow line, I got that one. See, I'm learning I just moved here in July, so I'm learning my lines. All right? It's not an easy one. Yeah, Skokie Swift. Yeah.
I'm Natasha. I'm from downtown Fulton Market.
Welcome, Natasha. So nice to see you. We're glad you're here. Oh my gosh, there's so many people. Whoa. Okay. Hello. All hiding behind me. Great. We'll start from the back and move forward.
Hi, I'm Laura. I live in the Loop, but originally from Long Island, New York.
Nice. Welcome.
And I'm Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm from Chicago originally.
Amazing. Welcome. Yeah.
I'm B. I live in Rogers Park, but kind of from all over.
Amazing. Well, we're glad you're here from all over. Yeah.
I'm Maya. I'm also from Rogers Park.
I'm Seth. We live together in Rogers Park.
So also from Rogers Park. Great. Okay. Welcome from Rogers Park. So glad you're here. Yeah.
My name is Emma. I'm from Evanston, but I'm living in Lincoln Square.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome. Yeah.
I'm Thomas. I'm from Glenview.
I'm Erin. I'm from Northbrook, but live in Logan Square now.
Logan Square buddies. See, we got connections. This is why we ask where you're from, so you can make connections and be like, hey, can I have a ride home afterwards?
I'm Maya. Live in Edgewater now, but grew up in southern New York. And I'm Amanda, also in Edgewater, and I grew up in Boston.
Amazing. Welcome. We have a lot of Connecticut folks and New York folks here today. I love it. Anybody else? We're so glad each and every one of you are here, whether you're here for the first time or here for the 100th time. Welcome. What is happening this week? Where are my announcements? Everything is happening. Guess what? Passover is happening. Our next Shabbat is going to be a virtual Shabbat on the 22nd, followed by that Shabbat morning on the 23rd. We'll be at JCYS for our Saturday morning services, and then we'll be kind of back to our regular rotation after that. We also have a Rise and Shine that morning, and we'll be celebrating a Bar Mitzvah. You might say, wait a second, that's so far from now. Why is it so far from now that we're having Shabbat services? It's because between now and that service is Passover. Woo! We are having a Mensch Academy virtual Pesach gathering on the 9th. That's coming up. That's this weekend. Do you want to say more about that?
That's tomorrow.
I can't tell you any more than that because I don't know anything.
Great. Okay. And then on Monday, there are still slots for our great matzah bake-off. So come hang out with me. It's going to be really fun. Come out with me. We're going to learn about matzah. We're going to make our own matzah. We're also going to be making matzah covers as well. We have some amazing teachers who are coming in. It's like an adults kind of event. It's like a paint and pour type thing. There'll be wine. There'll be other beverages. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be at the Mishkan space on Monday. There's still spots, so I'd love to see some folks there. And then next Saturday, we'll be doing our second night virtual Seder. So it's all online toward a new promised land. We'd love to have you join us if you don't have plans for the second night. And then at the end of Passover, we will be re-leavening ourselves at The Re-Leavening, not a horror film. A Passover, it sounds like a horror film, doesn't it? The Re-Leavening.
Sounds like the doughboy got squished.
Right? Exactly, the Re-Leavening. We're having beer, we're having pizza, we're having other carbs. It's going to be a half-acre brewery, I believe, and it should be really fun, a way to kind of close out Passover together. Other stuff coming up, we have a middle school Holocaust museum trip, we have a spiritual spring cleaning Shabbat, we have a D-Team open call. If you want to be one of these folks, we're having an open call for folks who want to join us. Yeah, okay, cool. I got excited people. Awesome. That's coming up soon. And then also to the next installment of Rabbi Lizzie's Israel-Palestine reading group will be happening in May. You can find out more details on all of that stuff on our calendar. Sign up for our newsletter, make friends, talk to us. We'll tell you more about stuff. But for now, why don't we pray? I invite you to rise as you are able. We turn to page 13, and we face east, which I believe is that way.
Sure is.
That way.
That way.
That's north. All good.
Really? That way.
Yep. That way. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Hashem Borach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Hashem Borach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. You may be seated. Umavir yom vin laila, umavdil ben yom vin laila, Adonai tzavot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Hamari v'aravim. Page 14. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, ukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shofenu u'bekumeinu, nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'b'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, ve'orech yameinu, u'vahem negeh yomam v'layla, yomam v'layla. Ve'avatcha al tasir mil'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. We cover our eyes, we take one breath for each word of the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, ושרתם לראות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. We spend a little time with the words on pages 16, 17. We'll come back together in just a moment. Adonai Elohim Emet. Continue on the bottom of page 18. Umalchuto beratzon kiblo lehem Moshe umriam uvnei Yisrael lecha anushu v'simcha rabah ve'amru chulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tzilot osef eleh malchutach arovanecha bokeam lifnei Moshe ze eli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed ve'ne'emar ki fada ana Yaakov ugolo miad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. So in a moment, we're going to continue with Hashkivenu on page 19. But first, I want to make a case for thoughts and prayers. I feel like thoughts and prayers often, particularly in like progressive communities where we really yearn for and want to enact change in the world. We see the world as it is, we see the world as it should be, we recognize the gap between those two, and we want to close it. And we understand that to close that gap between the world as it is and the world as it should be, we need to do something. We need to do something. But guess what? Right now you can't do anything. You're sitting in a chair in Second Unitarian at a Mishkan Shabbat service on Friday evening in Lakeview in Chicago, and we are far away from so many of those places in the world that need our action, that need our effort to change. I'm thinking about the loss of lives in Israel. I'm thinking about those killed in the Ukraine. I'm thinking about the suffering that is happening in so many different places around the world. And honestly, actually, it's not just on Shabbat that we cannot always do something. There's so many things that we face that we can't do anything about at a particular moment, including heartbreak, including loss, including those things that inflect our own lives with pain and suffering and difficulty. There isn't always a do to do. And so this is where thoughts and prayers come in. We think about, we pray for, we hold those places, those people, ourselves in our minds, because just because we can't do something doesn't mean we can't be aware of these things. We bring them into our awareness so that maybe at the point when there is something we can do, we still remember that they're there. So maybe at this moment there isn't anything we can do, but what we can do, just think of all those people in our lives who are in need of somebody, in need of presence, to think of all those people who are holding difficulty right now, to think of those places in the world that are experiencing brokenness, and to say, I'm going to think about you. I'm going to include you in my prayers. I'm going to hold you in my mind, in my heart, so that on the chance, on the possibility that maybe tomorrow, or maybe in a week from now, or maybe in a month from now, or maybe years from now, there is something I can do to help, I've not forgotten you. I've not forgotten you. So let's take a moment as we go into these words that are about extending that awareness to all the places in the world in need of healing. To call to mind the people you're thinking of tonight, whether you know them or don't know them, whether it's somebody far away, somebody close, or even yourself. And just create that space to hold that person, those people, with the hope that there will be a time we can turn around and say, I'm here for you. I'm here to help. I'm here to help heal. From page 19. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha v'taknenu b'eitza tova milfanecha v'hoshienu ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha v'taknenu b'eitza tova milfanecha v'hoshienu. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha v'taknenu b'eitza tova milfanecha v'hoshienu. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha v'taknenu b'eitza
בעצה טובה מלפניך ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך והושיענו ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל, והירושלים. We rise as we're able, page 20. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד עולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. יתקדש ויתקדש שם רמה בעלמא תפרח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובעת כל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמכרים ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולם היה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שבת קודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם בעלמא ואמרו אמן ואמרו 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 אמן. We're going to take a moment for personal silent prayer. You can use the words on the page, pages 21 through, I believe, 27. Yeah, 21 through 27. You can use the words on your heart or simply just take this time for a few deep breaths. We'll come back together in just a moment.
you're finished, you may take a seat.
In the spring of 2018, when I was working as a chaplain for people who were recently incarcerated or transitioning out of prison, I posted the following status just before Passover. This week, I was sitting with my weekly spirituality group at the Wellness Center, an outpatient addiction treatment center, where I was doing my prison chaplaincy training. The group that I was working with got to talking about freedom, a hot topic for people who have recently been released from prison or are on parole. What makes you feel free or not free? I asked them. Many of them chimed in with similar answers. Parole stipulations and trouble finding a job make them feel not free, while the ability to choose their sleep schedule and their clothes and their food and where they go makes them feel free. And then one man, who I'll call Matthew, piped up. He said, "I'm all about freedom, guys. When I first got out, I kept getting up every night at 3 a.m. to make myself a sandwich just because I could. But now I'm wondering if I will ever really be free. Everywhere I go, I gotta watch out for the cops because I can get thrown back in jail just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And every time I go on a job interview, I get rejected because of my incarceration history. My family won't even talk to me now because they assume I'm just gonna get thrown back in jail. I'm out here trying to be better, trying to do good in society, and I feel like I'm just being told that I'll never be more than another black drug dealer." The other men in the group agreed that this was a real impediment to their freedom, that even if they were no longer incarcerated, they could make midnight sandwiches. They couldn't really make much else for themselves, and so they weren't really free. Many of us tell the version of the Passover story where Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, "Let my people go," and Pharaoh's like, "No," and then they go back and forth, and there's plagues, and then there's a dramatic leaving story, and that story isn't really true. It's not fully true. Moses doesn't say, "Let my people go." Moses says, in the name of God, "Let my people go that they may serve me." Shlach et ami vaya avduni. It's a 3-word phrase. The 2 clauses of that phrase are really important here. The first one, shlach et ami, let my people go, let them be free from slavery. Vaya avduni, so that they shall be able to serve me. The root of the word vaya avduni, avad, is the same as avodah, the biblical word that means work and worship in one. The reminder that good work is a form of worship, and that worshiping is doing good work, is working for a better world. So both Moshe's refrain to Pharaoh and Matthew's story point to 2 different types of freedom. There is freedom from oppression, which Matthew celebrated with his midnight sandwich, the shlach et ami. And there is freedom to grow, to change, to pursue our holy purpose. We need both of these types of freedom. We cannot claim freedom when we are oppressed by another, when we are enslaved in a power dynamic to a person who gets to make decisions for us, to a society, to an institution that makes decisions for us. That is one version of freedom. But without the freedom to make holy decisions for ourselves, without the autonomy to act and be in good relationship with other people, we are not truly free. Which feels very different from the kind of freedom that gets used in America in 2022. So I wanted to check on this sort of dual definition of freedom. Is this just a Jewish thing, or is this something inherent about freedom? So what do you do when you want to know what something means? You Google it. Well, helpfully, Merriam-Webster defines freedom as the quality or state of being free. So I had to look elsewhere. Turns out Wikipedia actually also does definitions, which is cool. And Wikipedia does, in fact, give us a helpful definition. It says, freedom is understood as either having the ability to act or change without constraint, or to possess the power and resources to fulfill one's purposes, which is exactly what Moshe asked Pharaoh for, and what Matthew was looking for and lacking in his own journey towards freedom. In other words, freedom means freedom from someone else telling you what to do, freedom from someone else making choices for your life. And freedom also means freedom to do what you want, to not be told, but also to do outwards. But this is a little bit of a problem for us. This is where we run into problems in American society. Because this definition of freedom makes it easy to think of freedom as a zero-sum game. And I have to get as much freedom for myself as possible kind of approach, which might make us think that freedom is no one telling us what to do. It's the license to do whatever we want with no restrictions. But of course, we have seen the myriad ways that this self-centered approach to freedom, my freedom, comes crashing into your freedom. If you and I view freedom as an existential power struggle, whether I am free from you or you are free from me, I am free from the things you want me to do and you are free from the things that I want you to do, then freedom becomes a zero-sum game. It becomes just a power struggle. It's not freedom. It's power. The only ways out of the above paradigm are for one side to oppress the other or for us to compromise. For me to willingly sacrifice a portion of my freedom for the sake of you having yours and vice versa. Which is why the nuance of vaya'avduni is so critical. It's in the plural, and the subject is God. The freedom that God wanted to lead the Israelites toward was not one in which they could go on a hiking trip in the Sinai desert. The freedom that God wanted to lead them towards was one in which they could work together for a common purpose. Freedom in the Passover story is innately bound up with sacrifice. The point is that we should be sacrificing not to another human, but to a holy purpose, to an infinite in the service of building community. That is the biblical freedom that we are moving towards. And this freedom to serve a higher purpose is predicated on being free from oppression. So just as it was not enough for Matthew to be free from incarceration, but not rebuild his life, we cannot be free to act with integrity, with intention when we are oppressed. Each time that Moses goes back to Pharaoh, and he goes back many times throughout the story, he goes back and he says exactly the same thing to Pharaoh. Shlach et ami vaya'avduni, let my people go that they may serve me. And the first many times this happens, Pharaoh gives him a series of similar responses, which are basically, sure. Yeah, you and Aaron can go into the desert and make sacrifices, but don't come far. Come right back. Or, sure. You and all the men can go and make sacrifices, but you have to leave your women and children and wealth here. And of course, each time Moshe says, no dice, because I don't just want the vaya'avduni. I want the shlach et ami vaya'avduni. I want the freedom from oppression, and I want the freedom to go worship, to go do avodah. This kind of freedom, this freedom to act with integrity, is not conditional. It cannot exist when the people that I am trying to build community with are not also free. We might be able to compromise on certain freedoms when pursuing a new life, but we cannot compromise when your freedom oppresses mine. The feminist writer and activist Rita Mae Brown wrote that a life of reaction is a life of slavery, intellectually and spiritually. One must fight for a life of action, not reaction, she said. We must feel that we are in control of our lives, free of enslavement and violence and oppression, in order to be able to be free to build community together. this is a lesson that we must learn from the Passover story, that we are all responsible for each other's freedom, that any liberation that does not include you and me and all of us is not a true form of freedom. The Mishnah says, and we repeat this in the Seder, that every single one of us is obligated every year to see ourselves as if we personally went forth from Egypt. I take this command very seriously. So each year, I try to engage in the sacred imagination of putting myself in the Exodus story. And each year, since I have served as a spiritual guide at an organization literally called Exodus, that was the name of the spiritual community, the transitional community that I was a chaplain at, I find that my sacred imagination of the biblical Exodus story gets me thinking about Matthew and the thousands of other people who are not free despite no longer being incarcerated. Which I think is the point of the Mishnah's command. The rabbis of the Mishnah want us not to engage in a particular historical sympathy. We don't reenact the Passover story in the way that we reenact the Shavuot, the giving of the Torah at Sinai, by staying up all night. We don't reenact it the way that we reenact Sukkot, by building literal huts and living in them. The rabbis of the Mishnah don't want us to imagine our journey to freedom so that we can feel the salt spray on our faces as we cross through the waves. They want us to develop empathy for the emotions of the Exodus, to develop empathy for the feeling of being degraded, to move from that fear and degradation into the awe-inspiring and intense experience of passing through something miraculous and into the expanse of the desert. They want us to imagine going from oppression to freedom, going from looking inwards to looking outwards at community, seeing ourselves as part of a whole. Freedom, liberation, it's an ongoing process. We are always going to come back to the Passover Seder and talk about freedom. It's a North Star that we can and should always be turning to. It plays out on deeply personal levels. Each year, each of us might find ourselves thinking about personal freedoms that we are working for, like Matthew's story of freedom from the carceral system. But it also plays out on a societal level, in the scale and the ongoing cycles of violence, the slow march towards equal representation. That's the point of the Seder, to get you to locate your own personal freedom story in the context of the world that you are living in, to see that your journey and our journey towards collective liberation is always ongoing but can succeed. So let's engage in that together for just a moment here. This week, we mourned the deaths of 3 young Israelis who were shot while they enjoyed a night out in Tel Aviv. Perhaps you, like me, have been to Dizengoff Street in Tel Aviv. Perhaps you, too, have been to bars on the very block where these murders occurred. As I read about the attack, I could taste both my favorite drink at Spice House on the block where these men were shot, and I could taste the fear of this story. I could taste my fear about what I knew to be an almost certain escalation of violence. What that will mean for Israelis and for Palestinians. This is an oppressive violence. This is an unfreedom. It's a cyclical revenge and terror cycle that each side inflicts on the other when we think of freedom as a mine or yours competition. It's the kind of cycle that makes freedom feel impossible. The oppression of this pattern claimed the lives of young men enjoying a night out, and it will surely be used as a justification for more killing and pain and oppression. We are not free when we expect violence to perpetuate, when we justify killing others because we've seen them do it to us. The Passover story must call us to pray for freedom from this kind of cycle of violence. This week, we also celebrated a historic first in the United States when Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson was confirmed as Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first Black female Supreme Court justice in the United States. Perhaps you've seen the image floating around the internet of 115 little emoji faces, representing the 115 individuals who have sat on the Supreme Court of the United States in our country's history. 110 of those emojis represent men. Only 5 represent women. 112 of those emojis represent people who are white. Only 3 people of color have ever served on our nation's highest court. None of those 115 emojis represent anyone who identifies as anything other than straight and the gender they were assigned at their birth. Justice Brown Jackson's confirmation tips just a little bit that balance. Seeing her on TV, seeing her face in newspapers, eventually seeing her face in history books will surely teach other young people that they are free to pursue their loftiest dreams and succeed at them. Perhaps it will also pave the way for the first gay or trans or Asian or Pacific Islander or Native justice of the Supreme Court. And it should give us faith that someday we won't be talking about firsts anymore. That someday there will be 250 emojis and they will represent the full spectrum of Americans. Someday we will live in a world where all people will be welcomed into positions of power because we know that their presence will help ensure that others are free to do the same. We hold all of this as we sit down at the Passover table a week from now. We hold all of this as we tell an ancient story that echoes the story of our modern world. This is how the Passover Seder can be both an act of gratitude and a call to action. We're called to feel gratitude for the freedoms that we enjoy, from the ways that we do get to live free from oppression, free from persecution, the choices that we get to make to support our own well-being. But the Passover Seder should also fill us with a little bit of fire. The fire of inspiration that we should all have the freedom to make holy choices. The freedom to decide what is best for our collective well-being and health. And it should remind us that we have the freedom to overthrow tyrants, to make freedom from oppression and freedom to live in a better world available to all of us. May you have a happy and kosher Passover.
We're going to rise together as we're able. Page 32, we face east. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei kedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'grei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, Lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. We turn to page 33, 2 paragraphs on the bottom. Ki hamalchut shel chachi ulamei timloch bechavod, kakatu betoratecha, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed, v'nehemar v'haya Adonai, l'melech al kol haaretz, hayom hahu yiyeh, Adonai echad u'shemo echad. You may be good. We take a moment to remember people that we're thinking of today, whether they died recently or in seasons past. If there's anybody in the room who's observing a yard site or in a period of mourning, I'd like to rise, and if you feel comfortable, share the name of the person you're thinking of aloud. If you're joining us via live stream, you can share their name in the chat.
My grandfather, Stuart Steiner, and my grandmother, Deborah Delano.
Exon Goldstein and Senegal.
Grandfather, Seymour Slavkin.
If you're observing a yard site or in a period of mourning, or it's your custom to stand for Kadisha Tom, rise together, page 34. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach chirutei ve'amlich malchutei b'chayachon uvyomechon uvchayei zechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'mayam. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei tekudesha brichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru Amen.
Amen.
May the memories of all we've recalled today be for a blessing, and may we be a blessing to their memories in turn. We did it. We've done Shabbat together. In a moment, we're going to bless some wine and some challah. Juice? Wine? Who knows? It's always a mystery.
We're going to find out.
We're going to find out. We're going to bless it together. We're going to sing ourselves out of the room. We're going to go out. We're going to enjoy some snacks and some schmoozing. Please introduce yourself to somebody who you don't know, whether you're new or not new, and especially those of you who are not new. Your job is to introduce yourself to somebody you don't know and to help make us all feel welcome in this space. But thank you all for being here today. And we are going to rise as we're able and turn to Kiddush on page...
I know it without the words if you want me to do
That's right. That's right. Page 30. Got it. You got it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzah banu v'shabbat kodsho v'aratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh b'reishit ki hu yom techila v'mikra'ei kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim ki banu b'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen. All right, we're going to say Motzi, and then we're going to pass this around as we sing Oseh Shalom, okay? I think it's pre-sliced. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
We're on the bottom of page 27. You want to join us for one last song before we go out? Let's go. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al shalom, everyone. Big thank you to our Davening team, to our crew who helped us out today.
Woo!
For all of you for joining us, for those on live stream joining us. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.